government with the lowest approval rating ever is continuing its assault on its citizens. Its children's well-being and schools bill is said to ensure that no child slips through the cracks. But while the bill presents the rhetoric of safeguarding well-being, something larger and far more sinister is clearly being built. The reality is that it appears to be a national identity architecture for minors, ultimately facilitating ID that could track every child from cradle to grave. Sadly, the UK is not unique here. It is simply catching up fast towards a global policy pattern. But the UK is slicing and dicing its approach to ensure that it does not raise undue opposition from the public. Now, we've already discussed the way in which a single verified digital identity has been created via the government's One Login service. It's not called Brick Card, it's not an ID card, but it opts for an innocuous convenience lure to trap the unsuspecting. The point is that just like with other developments overseas, this bill does not need to say digital ID to deliver one. Before we get into it, it's just worth considering two essential components of a digital ID system, which include A means to identify individuals, and B, to ensure interoperable data exchange between trusted systems. To that end, this bill establishes these two critical elements via a single unique identifier, or SUI, and a legal duty to share personal data across schools, councils, and public health bodies. This is the spine of a lifelong digital ID framework, providing a data-driven infrastructure that transforms every child into a traceable, linkable data point. The SUI is the key component, requiring a consistent identifier for every child in the UK and to build a register for children not in school. Pilots have already been undertaken utilising the NHS number for this purpose. This decision carries enormous significance. The unique, durable identifier acts as the prerequisite for digital ID, as mentioned. This means all data points, including attendance, medical records, and welfare checks, can be assigned to that individual across all services for life. But you wouldn't want to call this digital ID because, of course, that would incite opposition. That number will not expire as childhood ends. Instead, it will become the logical seed point for cradle-to-grave digital ID. Compulsory data sharing complementing the identifier is the new legal duty for agencies to share personal data, which is imposed by this bill. The justification is said to be one of safeguarding purposes, but the reality is that this helps to actually lower the threshold for data sharing between these different public services. Each of these entities has previously operated under strict separation, whether it's public health, councils or schools, and that has maintained privacy standards to ensure that data gathered for one reason could not be shared elsewhere. That helped to actually prevent function creep. The intention here is to make a sharing a default state, and privacy really then becomes the exception. Thus, the bill effectively lays a legal pipeline for a multi-agency database, all tied back to the SUI or NHS number. So upon passing of this bill, data flows are legally mandated and identifiers are universal to create the architecture for a national data spine. As regular viewers will know, the government already has two layers of the digital ID system well underway. The One Login system is increasingly being embedded amongst government service access, and the upcoming gov.uk wallet will hold the official ID credentials, which can then be utilised by public and private sector providers. This provides the complete data stack of a persistent identifier, that is the SUI, then the authentication and credentials via One Login and the wallet. together with the legal data sharing framework which this bill brings. Previously, we've seen that digital ID was concealed behind notions of a brick card or a physical or mobile app-orientated card and QR codes. This has really concealed the far more innocuous one login system. But this bill conceals the national identity mechanism behind the moral shield of child protection. For who can oppose the notion of safeguarding? This is a surveillance infrastructure really wrapped in a caring and compassionate wrapper. This helps neutralise privacy concerns and, as I understand it, once the infrastructure exists, it can expand without fresh votes or public debate. It's safeguarding today, but tomorrow it becomes a data mining monopoly. I think the playbook here is becoming increasingly familiar to all. Pilot it and wrap it in caring or convenience. Normalise it, citing examples from overseas of best practice, and then later look to mandate it. Once fully operational with a critical mass on board, the network effects ensure that reversal becomes technically and financially impossible, whoever comes to power. Now, it seems very likely that the NHS number will be the unique identifier. It serves to exemplify the depths of their deviousness, really. An existing number sounds harmless, but it merges health and civic identity, thereby repurposing the NHS database as the root of a broader identity structure. When schools, councils and the like use the same number, this offers a verified record for every child from birth. Thereafter, integration with one login or the NHS app is very straightforward. As we've previously discussed with India's Aadhaar system and with what we are currently seeing with one login, digital ID systems commonly start as voluntary. As time passes, the system becomes too convenient to avoid. Citizens end up complying through almost necessity. This is coercion through the path of least resistance. Now, it seems inevitable that safeguarding will soon evolve into service improvement, then it will become predictive risk analysis. We know full well that the government already engages in various programs that use data to predict, for instance, school grades, as well as which kids are more likely to fall into crime, truancy or care. This is more power and less accountability. The inevitable outcome is algorithmic profiling and an apparent removal of judgment by professionals. The identification number will of course persist, outlasting any government. Future administrations will inherit total visibility. The system is built to be permanent, for once the identifier is universally depended upon, you cannot delete the digital spine of the system. Therefore, it is another redefinition of the relationship between the individual and the state, firmly in the favour of the state. And it's already a deeply abusive relationship, as we know. This is really about data governance. It is about who controls the data, who can access it, and how long it endures. Governments have learned from prior digital ID rollouts and know that a piecemeal approach works best, particularly when new legislation comes with an emotional cover story. The passing of this bill would ensure durable identifier, the legal authority for data flow. Thereafter, the authentication, the wallet, and the analytics will fall into place. Much the same blueprint appears to be rolling out globally. So in summary, we have a foundation stone being the unique identification for the child, a number that will then follow the child for life, which will link every record, every service, and every decision. The identity can then never be untangled from state oversight. It's not about children's well-being, but rather the datafication of childhood. Every child turned into a lifelong data point in the machinery of digital governance. The bill has actually had its second reading, and the longer it goes unresisted, the more embedded the data architecture becomes. We truly are in the fight of our lives here, and resistance is deliberately being undermined by normalising compliance. This is a tactic we've seen many times before, but key strategies could include the following. Demand transparencies, filing FOIs on pilots, contracts and regulations, applying pressure to collective action groups to follow these finer details, insist on legal safeguards including opt-outs, purpose limitation, data retention, etc. Leverage civil society, so that could be via parent teacher groups, teaching bodies as well. Refuse voluntary adoption where possible. Monitor and expose any function creep that we witness. Legal objections could also be undertaken, and we've already mentioned the Identity Documents Act of 2010. So ensure you use paper alternatives for any applications you make to government for driving licenses, passports. In unison, we can reduce our reliance on the system. But there's so much good in this world, and anything we can do to actually impede this process would be a huge win for mankind. Thanks ever so much for joining me. Do check out the other videos on this playlist, and I look forward to seeing you next time.